Look, I know it's boring, the YouTube cheese. Hey, hit the like and subscribe button, but it actually matters. It's going to make a difference to what guests I can bring for you to give you the best alpha in the world. So just stop what you're doing for a second, hit the like, subscribe button, and then we'll get on with the interview. Hi, I'm Raoul Pal, and welcome to my show, The Journeyman, where we travel together to that nexus of understanding of macro, crypto, and the exponential age of technology. One of the things I spend my time thinking about is what does the world look like after the economic singularity? What retains value in a world where anything can be made in abundance and intelligence is worth zero? And that's where blockchain comes in, because blockchain creates scarcity in a digital world. It has a unique property that will create different forms of value over time. It's also spawned a cultural revolution that came from the internet and into crypto, and that expressed itself via art. And I talk a lot about the digital art market because I think it's of primary importance. It's our culture. It's the culture of these times, these momentous times where we live all day on the internet, trying to make that living, to unfuck our futures. And those stories are told about that culture and these times, and they end up being these mimetic packages called digital art. And there's many great artists that are looking at the cultural side. We also have the technological side. Don't forget, AI is coming into all of this and into the creative industries, and we're seeing the digital art market absorb that too. So this is a historical marker point in the history of art. So there's a lot of excitement around art. There's a lot of confusion too, because the NFT market blew up spectacularly in 2022, and people confuse NFTs and PFPs with actual art. Art is upstream of all wealth. As people make money, as this crypto industry goes from a $3 trillion industry to a $100 trillion industry, there's a lot of wealth that's going to get generated. And upstream of all wealth ends up being art. So art tells the stories of our times. It stores wealth because it stores these cultural memetics of these times. And it's always important to us as humans to record those. We've always done it, whether it's cave paintings, whether it's Warhol, whether it's Damien Hirst, whether it's Banksy. They're all cultural packages that last time and become valuable. So today I want to speak to who I think is a personal friend, but also one of the greatest living artists in the United States, not just in a digital format, but he tells his story across all formats, whether it's prose, whether it's books, whether it's performance art, whether it's digital art, whether it's physical art. He's ridiculously talented, extraordinarily funny, and his outlook on America and the cultural decay of America through fond eyes is, I think, one of the most profound statements that we see today. So anyway, let's chat to Mark Wilson, also known as DieWithTheMostLikes. Join me, Raoul Pal, as I go on a journey of discovery through the macro, crypto, and exponential age landscapes. In The Journeyman, I talk to the smartest people in the world so we can all become smarter together. Mark, welcome to Real Vision.
Cheers. I'm pumped to be here. Oh shit, I gotta get the label up. This classy, aged to perfection.
I'm drinking
vintage.
Bollinger and you're drinking Pabs. This is the basis of our friendship, right?
It's a vintage Pabst, so I think it's been in our fridge for a couple of years. So I will say it's drinking well today.
It's almost the 12 on the front is like it's 12 years old and aged vintage Pabs.
Yeah, I think that's right, man. The thing is you can't really tell how old it is. It's always going to taste the same. It always tastes like piss. It goes in piss, it comes out piss. It's fine.
There was some guy here who was a legend. He'd been on the island. He'd never worked a day in his life. His parents are kind of wealthy people from Kentucky or Indiana, that border, and he'd never worked. And he would take his own beer to every party into his late 70s. And I'm like, why are you doing this? He goes, I don't trust sell-by dates. I will only drink fresh beer. I'm like, wow.
Damn, man. So was it good beer? Like,
no, it was terrible beer. It
was right.
Always Budweiser. It was always Budweiser, and it had to be within its sell-by date, because on this small island, a little came where I am now, almost everything's past its sell-by date. You get used to eating things that are 2 years past their sell-by date. Blondie's not very good at that, but I'm teaching her the ways of a small island.
So she'll just be eating like 2-year-old hot dogs and not really caring. Like they've gone completely
We haven't got her
pale,
there yet.
translucent.
I'm there.
Okay, all right.
He's not.
You're there.
So
Yeah.
that's my dichotomy. I'm drinking Bollinger, eating 2-year-old hot dogs with out-of-date mustard. So listen, there's so much I want to talk to you about. And, you know, it's weird because I don't get intimidated a lot. And even though we're friends, the weirdest thing is the body of your work is so fucking massive that you have everything from videos to performance art to physical art to digital art to books to prose to article writing. And it all tells a story of the weird world of Die-With-The-Most-Likes. And it's actually pretty hard to get my head around. And as you know, I've been going down this rabbit hole for a while and it keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But before we get into all of that shit, and there's so much to talk about, I just want to start to the beginning is, who are you? Where did you grow up? Where did you start? Because I want to get to why you're doing what you're doing. That's the kind of big thing. So tell me about yourself.
Let's get after it. Yeah, I'm from northern Indiana. Many would refer to it as like the butthole of America, but like proudly the butthole. You know, like I think we love warm. We love like kind of existing in like the warm shit and kind of just spewing all over the place, man. It's great, and like I hold a great reverence for the place that I'm from and like the Rust Belt. So, I'm from there originally, and it's inspired a ton of my art, like in really like that entire region, strip mall culture, fresh asphalt, fast casual restaurants, all that stuff kind of pours in. But like really from way back from the start, you know, I think like for the longest time, you know, I was making shit that nobody wanted to look at.
What were you doing as a career? How did let's start with, when did you get into art?
Let's do it. Yep. So I've been making shit my whole life, but like many people, I think, and my parents included, assumed that I was just gonna grow up and then die doing something I hate. So I was working in a digital. I graduated from college with degrees in German and political science, completely worthless, and then started just creating digital waste for a living. So I was at this company that essentially I was programming spam emails to B2B marketing people, like just a horrifically depleting job, soul crushing in many ways. Like really, you know, I looked at myself. And, you know, it's funny, you gave me that really heartwarming introduction. And I think the introduction that they sent out was a low importance email that just said, this is just the next sorry fuck to do something he hates. He's going to be sending our spam emails for the next 13 years. So I spent 13 years at this company doing the exact same thing, completely stuck in a rut, zero progress, zero momentum, just creating and churning digital waste for a living. But while I was there, it was so soul crushing and backbreaking and defeating in every way that I started to really get into my writing. And so, but the first couple books I wrote, I was writing them while I was at work because it was just like such a horrific thing that I needed to retreat into these different worlds.
So
that I was
books
making
were first for you.
Yep, books were first. That's right. So really, the writing kind of preceded all of the serious production of like paintings and digital art, and really because it was like the only thing that wasn't taking up room in our apartment in Chicago at the time, where like we'll get into this I'm sure, but like my wife banned me from painting any more paintings because our entire house was filling with them and nobody wanted them. So it was just like this accumulation of like my creativity and my imagination that was ultimately like making it impossible to live inside of our house or our apartment in Chicago. So it was only writing at the time.
That existence of doing a soulless job that's repetitive reminds me a lot of, I don't know if you ever saw the British version of The Office. It was soul crushingly awful. And I grew up with that. That was suburbia.
Mm-hmm.
And in my summer jobs when I was at school or university, I was working in an insurance company. Mm-hmm. And you just can't imagine anything worse because you have no personality, no nothing. And you live in this awful world where you aspire to have a 2-bedroom house and a strip of lawn this big that you might or may not mow. And you're like, this is it.
Yeah. And you'd see people at these jobs who were like, who would work there for like 50 years, and they'd just be sitting there microwaving clam chowder for lunch every day, just in the shared office microwave, while all of us just died under like the suffocating pressure of white noise machines that were trying to like pacify us as we created this shit for people that no one wanted. It was literally the production of shit that got immediately thrown away by whoever it was meant to consume. And then we would just keep churning and churning, for no reason whatsoever. So it was kind of this weird.
Did that build a sort of rage within you? Because the books were, I mean, they're not an easy read. They're bloody funny, but there's like this whole disgust of what you see around you, and you're distilling it and exaggerating it into why were you doing that? What were you trying to say? Or was it the rebellion against the awfulness of suburban existence?
It was absolutely written in varying states of disgust, right? Like, I think that I looked at my own life and my existence and the pointlessness of everything I was doing, and I was becoming so incredibly frustrated and just absolutely disgusted by it. And so I did pour myself into that, and it became ultimately like a vow for not completely succumbing to madness in those worlds, because it's easy to do. Like, you're in that job forever, and you feel like
why could you see it and others couldn't? Because other people, that's their life. But
it is.
You, for example, it flicked the switch to say there's something different.
Yeah, I think growing up, I didn't have a lot of outlets for observing art or experiencing art outside the world. So I was an avid reader. So I think, reading Hunter S. Thompson and Georges Bataille and Michel Houellebecq and stuff, I would be reading them as I was at this job, and I was kind of like imagining the world the worlds that they were creating, and I really longed to create something as special as they did and as backbreaking and soul crushing. So it was so when I saw these people who were just coming into the office and just experiencing this day-to-day kind of drudgery, I became obsessed with being a documentarian versus just a passive observer of what was happening. And so a lot of the things that I'm making now with my art and my writing, I'm really just a documentarian. Like, I look at stuff, I write it down, and create these kind of depraved, depressing versions of those things that are already pretty bad. Like, so they're these kind of slightly exaggerated versions, but yeah.
But then when you start writing these books, what do your friends say? Because that's also their life too, right? And you're looking at it with a different lens. You've got, a lot of the time art is a mirror, but in your case, it's actually a magnifying glass, and you're finding the shittiest, awfulest, smelliest, most revolting parts and holding up a magnifying glass and say, look at this. This is real.
Right. Finding insects to like light on fire with that magnifying glass.
That's right.
Right? Like, just torturing the shit out of people. Yeah. So the funny part is my friends don't really read any of my book. Like, I don't think any of my friends read any of my books, honestly. And like many people who I know don't read my books. I think the most hilarious part about that is, like, the most special moment for me as an artist was when a 70-year-old woman read one of my books and said it made her physically ill to read. And I was just like, I've made it now. This is fucking great. So even though my friends won't read them, at least the 70-year-old woman has read it and has made her physically ill. Now I'm an accomplished artist. So that part was like really special. And it's those little it's those little like nooks and crannies that you find, the tiny wins when like nothing is going your way. And at least there's that. At least you can make people sick with your writing. So, but yeah, they didn't really experience my writing a lot, honestly.
I mean, your books, I've read a few of them now, and the collection of short stories I loved. It's this warped world that I kind of really enjoy. The other one where you introduce a character, Alfonso Newton, plus who's the hero, anti-hero of the book?
Duke Dasher. Yeah.
Duke Dasher, who is really quite something. And that book gets almost impossible to read, but in a brilliant way. It's like, you took that Steven Seagal character, which I need to ask you about, why the fuck Steven Seagal and what does he mean to you? But that whole thing, that characterization was epic.
Yeah, thank you. And that one was like a true manifestation of it's. So as you know, I think both of us share an extreme love for 90s action films. So that combined with like my dad was reading all sorts of like David Baldacci and Dan Brown, those like god awful novels that are sold at Hudson News Airport. So what I wanted to do was take those. The original marketing plan for that book was I was going to write it and then I was going to put them inside of Hudson Newses across the country because it was made to look like one of those books.
That's right.
And so I was hoping that somebody would get stuck on like a 9-hour Germany flight that they thought was like a Dan Brown novel, and they find themselves getting baptized in a urinal full of shit at a tilted kilt in Ohio where like people are just dying and like the goriest shit is happening. I'm like, that would be my ideal scenario, is just ruining somebody's like super long flight with a fake book from Hudson News.
But that's taking the same idea of like this average commuter reading that Dan Brown book and doing their insurance job or their spam email job, and you're just like saying, I'm going to entirely fuck with that idea.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the funny part is that now that more and more people have kind of experienced my art and my writing, I think there's ultimately little parts of us, morsels of us, that want to participate in the depravity that I'm creating in those books, kind of like you said, where it's like, oh, it's this completely fucked up world, and it is putting a magnifying glass on the rotting carrion corpse of corporate America and like our lives in general. But there's parts of us that are like, fuck, that's me. And like I experience the same frustration, and I experience the same like inability to potentially like spiral out of what I'm doing. So I think that hopefully I give people a playground to get into, like yeah.
So a quick break in your regular programming. If you're serious about your future, grab my free report called Prepare for 2030. I think you've got 5 years to make as much money as possible, and this guide will help you navigate what's coming. The link is in the description. Download it now. Many people grew up with games where that was normality.
Mm-hmm.
You're living, like Grand Theft Auto. You're living in a totally fucked up, depraved world, and people spend enormous amounts of their time living in those worlds. So it's not that big, because it's escapism.
Yep.
In whatever format it is, right?
It really is, yeah. And it's like, who doesn't want to like have their head plunged into a vat of, rotted fortified wine and just drink up, like that's the thing. It's like I think that I'm obsessed with, we'll talk about this, I'm sure, but I'm very obsessed with like county fair culture, which is very big in America. I think Blondie took you to the Texas State Fair, which is like a level up from county. County is like, it's going up overnight. You're going on the rides. Your legs may get severed. You're going to watch a prize hog get slaughtered. It's all sorts of like weird stuff. But I've become obsessed with creating that same playground for people to, like experience and to get into.
So, okay. So you start writing books.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody cares.
Nope.
Your friends don't care. Your family don't care. People who read them don't care. How does that make you feel, and how does that then branch out into other forms of art? What gives you the courage to say, I'm going to express this in a different way?
Mm-hmm. To be fair, my dad did love it. It was kind of written for him because he loves that type of book, and he was like, oh, this is just insane. He's like, this is disgusting. But he was in, so I will say he loved it, which was a huge honor for me. But so once the writing had kind of stalled out, much like everything else, I just continued to make things, and I think that it just it never mattered who was looking at it in many ways, even though my friends weren't looking at it, even though there was like a couple of porn spam bots on Instagram that were following me, and they would give me some likes at times when they liked the content, or maybe they did or didn't, but it never really mattered. And creating in that void and in that vacuum really helped me develop my own style, kind of absent of influence in many ways, because I was just like, this is just what I'm making, I guess, and I'm just going to make this forever, even if no one looks at it. I think I had this fantasy
So
where
were
somebody
you painting but at that stage, or did you just start and realize you could actually do it? How did you do that?
So I was painting then, but I was painting too much. So I make shit a lot, like way too much probably.
You're so prolific, it's insane.
Thanks, dude. Yeah, so like we talked about earlier, my wife had banned me from making any more paintings, essentially, because she's like, dude, you're filling up our whole house. Like, we can't move around in here. It was a really depressing state of things, because you didn't want to throw them away. Like, I spent all this time on them, but nobody also wanted them. So I was just kind of stuck with these burdens that were like these like manifestations of things that I really, really cared about. But it was really sad that that it only seemed like it was me who cared about them. And then so she got me an iPad like 12 years ago, just saying, you have to start using this to get your creativity out. They can all be stored on the cloud or whatever the fuck it is, and and the painting goes away for a while until like something happens. So once I got the iPad, it became really easy for me to just participate in things way more quickly. So like when I was creating memes and when I was creating these like different like expressions of myself, I just became like, thousands and thousands and thousands of hours on that thing just allowed me to be able to create very, very quick.
Were you publishing them? Were you like Tumblr, like Xcopy, or what were you? Where was this going? This outlet?
I had an Instagram account with an art Instagram specific account with 29 followers on it. So those 29 courageous followers would dole out like 2 or 3 likes per post. And I would take those as I could, the small wins. And that was it. There was nothing else. Like, and so I had a Twitter at the time too, with like, I think 200 followers or something. Like most of them were
mainly bots.
Most of them were bots. And then also I did have a moment where I was like, I was trying to get people from the show The Hills to follow me for some reason. So like I went on this quest and Spencer Pratt finally followed me, which was like this huge win at the time. It was absolutely insane. And that's the kind of performance art shit that I was already doing when no one was even looking at anything. It was these like random things where
you were kind of thinking of it as performance art at the time.
I was, yeah. I was just like, what are these people? What's going through their head when they're reading these like depraved prose or looking at these like fucked up drawings I'm making? So I was just kind of like putting stuff out there, and it was very performative. But then like I had a tweet go semi-viral because the comedian Eric Andre, who I love, he's like this. Do you know Eric Andre at all?
No.
He's this hilarious, just completely mad. He's got this like fake talk show that he does, and he's super sweaty all the time. He is this very violent human where he's like throwing himself into shit. But I just made a piece and I tweeted at him and he retweeted it, and then it picked up all this steam and I started to get some followers, and somebody then, we'll get into this, but somebody just DM'd me and was like, hey, have you ever considered minting anything? I'm like, I don't know what the fuck that is. Like, I have no clue what minting is. And so he kind of explained it. So it was just this complete stranger who had like suggested that I sell digital art. And I'm like, I've never sold physical art, so why would I, like, I'm not sure why I would be able to sell digital art if nobody already wants my physical, but I win in anyways.
And what people don't realize about you is you're not stopping any of these other art forms. So now you've already started writing and you continue to write. Then you start painting, pissing off your wife. Then you start doing digital art. Then you're doing performance art. These are all cumulative. Nothing is stopping. It's like you doing more of that. So when does Die With The Most Likes emerge?
So I created this piece. Well, so I had created this piece of these old. I've always been very obsessed with consumption. Like kind of my phrase is create nothing, consume everything. The hungry for content caterpillar. Just people just being passive sponges and absolutely devouring anything that's put in front of them. Barely digesting it and shitting it back out into a neglected toilet is like my obsession with human beings, and like us too. Like I feel like I'm a part of that. I barely even look at anything anymore.
If we put a realistic mirror to ourselves,
yeah,
we're all on X all day, scrolling through shit,
yes. Just with our little, just our little hands just rubbing poop together like flies, and just like So I've been obsessed with that, and I thought like, man, what would be a really fucked up scenario would be like a bunch of elderly people in a nursing home, and they're being kept alive by like the adoration, the empty adoration bits they're getting from strangers online. And so I created this piece where it was like this guy in like a breathing tube, and there was a bunch of people behind him like pressing the button, and as soon as they stopped pressing the button, it would kind of like stop the breathing tube. And I just became obsessed with it. And I said, you know what? That's as good of a name as anything, is Die With The Most Likes. And hopefully I'll get there at some point. It's like ironic because ultimately I didn't have any likes at the time, and I didn't really give a shit either. So like, yeah.
Yeah, but in the end, truthfully, attention is the currency of humanity. Yep. Right. Upstream of all of that is love. That's the top of the attention bracket. But almost adjacent to it is hate. As long as you're getting attention. And the internet opened up attention in ways that we didn't imagine. It's now you're not trying to get attention in the playground at school or at work. You've now got this whole playing field of attention, and it's scored. And humans love a bit of gamification. And before you know it, we're all rabid dogs for attention. It's insane, but it's kind of a human trait that's always been there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. It's funny, as much as people don't want to say it, like and like before, like, we'll sit there and you'll have people complaining about the algorithm all day every day, and it's like, what changed about the algorithm? I'm getting no views. What's happening? And at a certain point, you just have to say fuck it. Like, I don't care, but like, I think that it's programmed into us to care, and we feel like failures if people aren't looking at our shit. I don't know. Yeah, what do you think? I mean, I interestingly enough, I feel like being in the void for so long, where it was like a pretty much a full decade of having no one ever look at my art, I kind of almost became numb to the sensation of wanting
And I
likes
think
or
that's
something.
the right answer. Is
Hmm.
you if you do it for other people, then it kind of falls apart. The
Yep.
genuineness and the authenticity of it falls.
Yep.
So you've got to just push out what you think people like, and over time, some people like it, maybe they don't. Maybe it never works for you, but maybe it does, and then that becomes interesting.
Agreed. And which is the funny part is, like, my poetry posts fail all the time on X, and I'm still just like, I'm posting my poetry. Like, you guys are just gonna get it, but it gets like, 20 likes instead of the
Well,
couple
because
hundred that
to
something's like.
be honest, I mean, I love the prose. It's like I don't think your art exists without the prose. They're like
Thank you.
they're through a different lens, saying the same thing, but what you write is so uncomfortable. Most people don't. They want to live in an Instagram world of fluffy things, and you ask them to think about the things that are not so easy, which is
Hmm.
the banality of life. We talk about this consumerism, this aging population, the holding out. People don't want to see that, but they also do. It's like looking at a car crash. And I think the prose, you need to be a reader and
Hmm.
to understand, but the prose is hard when you read it. I mean, your prose is genius. I mean, the description of any piece of art that you do is exemplary. There's two ends of that. There's you, who writes this long prose, and there's X Copy, who does, like, what my favorite is, well, in fact, you made a Ponderosa Meat Manager out of it, is the fuck you looking at, and the description is twat. And it's like
It's great.
genius. And you do the opposite side of that, which is you give a contextualized, beautiful prose about the awfulness of it, which comes from what you were sort of doing in the book. And what becomes interesting is it's, and we'll talk more of this later because I want to get through the chronology a bit. But it's this whole story you're trying to tell from every angle that is amazing. So you're putting art out there. Somebody goes into your DMs and says, "Why don't you mint something?" What year was this?
That was 2022, I think. Yep. Or
Oh, so
2021 maybe.
yeah, maybe 21.
Yeah, I think it's 21.
And
I just said, well, like, I guess I don't know what because really he just said, hey, people are selling. He essentially said people are selling idiotic shit, and I think your stuff is better than some of the stuff. And I was like, that's the first compliment I've ever had. So, like, I guess I will I'll follow that in. So he sent me, at the time it was a Foundation, like everyone was minting on this platform called Foundation. So he sent me an invite, which was very hard to get at the time, I guess. And I minted my first piece, and it was like $300 fucking dollars for gas or whatever. I didn't understand what was happening. I just noticed that I had lost
was this on
$300.
ETH or on Tezos?
That was on ETH. Yep. So I was like, all right, well, I guess that's $300, but I'm gonna make it back. This is gonna sell so fast, and like everyone's gonna love it. And the piece was an illustration of a Microsoft Office inbox where everybody's in varying states of decay. There's like Xanax bars flying into people's mouths, and it's just the type of thing that I'm very obsessed with, like the Office banality, like we had said. So I thought it was gonna crush. It did not at all. Nobody looked at it. No one obviously bought it. I didn't understand how Twitter worked, like with like, building a community and just like and being around and in like, caring about shit. So that didn't work. And then later he DM'd me again and said, hey, have you heard about this platform Hick and Nuke? I said no, but he's like, well, it's a lot cheaper. And I'm like, all right, cool. I'll start putting stuff up on this thing. Like, I don't know what the hell. And so I didn't even know if stuff was selling on there. It was awesome though, because it was just a feed. And so there was no curation. There was nobody deciding what gets put up front. There was nothing out there. It was just, you get blasted in the face with art, and you have no idea where it's coming from. You have no idea what order it's in. It's just there. So it was a really formative time in my life because in many ways it fostered the weirdo, bizarro art that I fucking love. And there was a place for it finally. So I started making these little sales of like $4 and $5 a pop. Like I would like mint an edition of 3 things and it would be like, I made $15. I'm like, this is nuts. Like I can order a fucking pizza with this. I can like, I was like, going crazy. I'm like, this is crazy. People are actually buying my stuff. This is awesome. And so I felt like I'd finally found a home there. And then it just kind of like grew and grew and grew and spiraled. And from there, it just kind of, got to where it is now, through an insanely diligent and obsessive need to suffocate people in this world that I was like relentlessly building.
And it's like you've picked at a scab endlessly from every direction. And I was listening through some of the series that you've done, from Dying Is Not Enough, which I love, because it's like the final end of that story that you're telling. And even to say that death is not enough is like, that's a big statement, but then also The Rise and the Fall, Legalized Ground Beef, Consumer Adoration, Exists to Submit, Strip Mall Salvation, The Unbearable Stench of Eternal Decay. You're basically taking every angle of that scab and picking at it. Why?
Just taking a cheese grater to it and just ripping, hoping that blood just won't stop flowing. Yeah.
What are you trying to say to people? Because I mean, you're doing it in every manifestation. I mean, every art form. You've even sung, because there was a video channel of you singing.
Mm-hmm. The SoundCloud rap. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So there's you in every form of art almost possible. Yeah. I've not seen any sculpture work from you yet, but all of these art forms, and you're all telling this. It's a big story. It's why are you telling it? At first, I understand you write the books to rebel against your own life, and you observe how ridiculous it is, and you exaggerate it and turn it into this world. But why do you feel that you have to tell this story? Because I think it's one of the most important stories, and I think you're cataloguing something that's incredibly important that will disappear, not only of Americana culture in the middle of America, but this moment in time where the baby boom generation dies out and everything changes. And I think it's only going to be more relevant as AI comes and the robots come, and we're going to feel less purposeful. But what's driving you to tell this?
Yeah, I think that I saw that nobody else wanted to tell it, potentially, like in some ways, like
I agree.
Like I'm from, like northern Indiana, like I said, considered by many the butthole of America, which I proudly call it that. But we're all from kind of piece of shit hometowns in some way, and like we all kind of love. I think that I love the place I was from, and I think that many of us do, but it never gets the story that it needs to be told, like the kind of small town middle American story, and also the story of our existence as like digital entities and like weird, crypto people. I found myself just ruminating on it over and over, and I felt like that nobody else was telling it, and that if somebody didn't tell it, like you said, it would be forgotten forever. And so I tell it. I try to tell it as accurately as possible, and I'll sprinkle in some extra madness and depravity at points. But like I find it fascinating. Yeah.
What's so authentic about what you do, and you and I've talked about this in the past, is you see it for what it is, but you still have fondness for it. So at no point are you judging people for it. No. It's like it is what it is.
Right.
And you kind of enjoy that, the awfulness of it all, and what it's come down to. It's come down to a bunch of brands and a bunch of people taking pharmaceuticals and and how even the county fair doesn't exist anymore really as a magnet for culture. It's just all so shit.
Yeah,
but
it's
with
like,
a fondness to it. It's past and what it is now.
Yeah, there's a comedy to our demise too. Like I think that we talked about humor and comedy before, and to not laugh at it is depriving yourself of one of the great joys in life. It's like why wouldn't I laugh at going to Applebee's and having sex with a dollar margarita, you know, like a fuckable margarita, or like a Dave and Buster's game that's glory holes or something. It's like, this is where we're heading, and like I'm totally on board with it. And let's just go down with it, and like just crank up the depravity and the sickness to 1,000 and just submit to this shit, because it's just too funny not to. It's like, you're sitting there and like, you know, you're getting hammered by FanDuel ads. You've got 1,000 Brazzers tabs open. You're just gooning your ass off. And that's just like, that's life. That's your existence. And I find there to be a very, very hilarious part to that, you know? So I'm on board. Let's go.
It's like, but also, again, what makes it so important is you live there. You're not like on the coasts judging Middle America.
Yeah,
it's the opposite. You're
it's
like,
great.
you know what? There's some magic here as well. The magic of,
There is.
dare I say it, the Olive Garden, or you know, any of this stuff, you know, that you prolifically bring out, which is the bland consumerism becomes an identity that you end up with fondness over, however awful it is.
Absolutely. And like I've said, I think one of my favorite stories of all time is I was at the county fair, and this was like a pivotal creative moment for me, where there was a amusement fair ride operator who had a personal DVD player that he was streaming hardcore pornography while working the Tilt-A-Whirl ride. And I was like I became obsessed with that guy. And I was like, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. He's running this ride, screaming hardcore porn, people in line. And I'm like, this is what I want to document. Like, this is it right here. This is like the entire dream right here in front of my eyes. And like, I really never looked back. It's like my favorite fucking thing ever. But
also, culture's a weird thing because people assume that other people have culture, and like Middle America has no culture. That's it has a culture.
It does.
And it's very defining. When you go to the Texas State Fair, it is the definition of that. Now, you might go to a Spanish village and see bullfighting and some person getting gored in the town. If that was in America, people would go, well, this is terrible. But because they're dressed in fancy suits getting gored and people are watching, you go, oh, that's amazing culture. It's like it's a weird world of cultural lens, right? What's deemed to be, we go to India to watch culture of, you know, people throwing paint at each other or whatever it is. When it happens in the United States, like, it's just society falling apart.
Right. Like, can you imagine somebody like in a flame decal dragon shirt and a pair of Jinkos doing a bullfighting competition? People would be like, this sucks. But yeah, the fancy clothing, like good wine and stuff. It's what does it, you know? So shit.
Yeah, it's the weirdest thing.
It is.
But do you think, and you and I have had this conversation before, do you think people understand what you're trying to say? Because when I look at, you know, I love culture, I absorb culture, and I look for culture and cultural moments, and we're clearly having one in digital art, in crypto, which is a culture, on top of the internet, which is a culture. It's super interesting to see. But I don't see your story being told in music. The medium of books is declining in this kind of way. So it's not really being told. In digital art, I see you doing it. In art itself, I don't see many people doing it. I'm sure there is some. You know, there's a direct line from what Warhol saw coming with soup cans to what you see to this day. But I don't see people doing it. I don't see writing about this. It's like we can't even talk about it.
Yeah, you wonder if people have gotten fed up with the process of like creating things so relentless, like, because it is tiring. You know, relentless creation and documentation is tiring as fuck. Like when you're waking up and doing it every single day. I write every day, I draw every day, I paint every day. I'm just wondering if there's something about like the attrition of like how much it takes, and just people not really wanting to continue to do that over and over. I don't know. But also,
I see the opposite. I just see the trend towards pop culture, which is like, let's brush this over.
Yeah.
Because we're going through such massive societal change, let's just brush it over and pretend it's not there.
Yeah.
Which in itself is a culture.
Yeah, it is. But yeah, just pave it over with asphalt, erase any type of wart or scar or blemish, and it's just this smoothed over. Yeah, it's like the
everything's gone through an Instagram filter.
Yeah. You're not wrong there. I didn't really think about it like that, but I think there is a carelessness in consumption too, like you were saying, where you can spend all day writing these books, writing prose, painting, or whatever, and like people on like Logan Paul on TikTok has a Pokemon card and he's getting 10 billion views or something. It's just like, why make it? It becomes a point where it's like, why make anything at all unless there is that drive where you just have to make it and you really want to fucking make it, you know, because otherwise what's the point, I guess.
And for me, great art is generally rebellion.
Yep.
Right, you have to be rejecting the system to say something worthwhile. There's very few artists that play into the beauty of life at this time. I can't remember the British artist who was painting in LA, stuff like that. That's very different, but that kind of punk attitude is important, because if not, we don't look at ourselves.
Yep. Yeah, you need somebody who is going to get into the bowels of things and just dip their hands into the sordid intestines of the things pouring out of us, and not be afraid to find, you know, the little things that are special that are still in there, you know. Like, I think that's the thing that's the other part, is like, in a world where content flows just so seamlessly, like, if we don't take our time and like pick those little fucking things out, those little morsels of corn in the shit, then it's all just going to be shit all the time. That's what it is.
And there's, you know, there's some people making commentary that really makes it stand out. Banksy's still brilliant at this.
Mm.
You know, he doesn't need to do that anymore, but he's still really good at taking the zeitgeist,
yeah,
putting up a mirror and saying, this is what you guys are fucking doing. Do you not see that? And
yeah,
everyone's like,
sure.
oh yeah, that's embarrassing.
Yeah, for sure. The reflection part is huge. And I think that, like, when people look at that, and it goes back to the point about there being this kind of deep desire to experience and to have a place in a mad world that you can't necessarily indulge in on a day-to-day basis, where you're looking at art and you're looking at writing and you say, like, damn, like, I just go to this horrific job. I need, like you were saying, is an escape mechanism. And hopefully, like, the things that I'm writing and the pieces that I make give people an invitation to also indulge in their mad side and be like a little peculiar and uncanny, and like do the shit that still matters in this world, which is just being weird in general. Like, I think that part is being completely erased, and it needs to be celebrated and cherished, really.
And I love the fact that around you, people use your language back at you.
Yeah.
Which shows that you're kind of really getting into people's heads. And they reflect some parts back at you, not other parts yet. Yeah. But, you know, the whole meat thing is like, it's hilarious. You've made meat your own, which is the funniest thing.
Yeah, I was losing it because I think you had bought your first piece and you use the term fully fuckable, which I use quite a bit, because that's one of my obsessions. I think that eventually every single product you'll just be able to have sex with here, because because people are going to be at the grocery store and just like, I would buy that, but I don't think I can bang it. So like, I don't want that. So I think everything will have like a fleshlight attached to it or a dildo or something. And people will just be like, oh, now I can have sex with that. So I'll pay the extra amount and I can go back and like goon with it or whatever. But I think you would use that term and somebody was like, what? He used fully fuckable in this thing? Like, what is that? And I'm like, yeah, that's just it's what I use quite a bit. So I was proud that you would use that term, because I'm obsessed with it.
Because, you know, people have really followed your language and that perspective. But that whole idea that everything becomes shaggable in English terminology kind of makes sense, is because if you think about where the world is going, I mean, you're talking about the hollowing out of middle America, because the manufacturing jobs disappeared and all of that. We're going to do that to fucking knowledge workers. We're going to do it to all manual labor. And in the end, all we've got left is humanity. Because only humans can be humans. AI can't be humans. Yep. And we have these weird things that we do, that we stimulate ourselves via dopamine or sexual stuff. And so Die With The Most Likes plus fully fuckable is kind of all of humanity.
It is. Yeah, I guess you're right. It does embody everything that we'll need. It's like our two basic needs in like 10 years, probably. That's it.
Maybe you'll do a series on love at some point, as opposed to death. but that's
Right.
it.
That's it. Yeah. Maybe I'll rebrand. Maybe I'll do a corporate rebrand at some point and be live with the most likes and be like a guru, be one of the people that holds their hands
Oh
like this and be
yeah.
like, I'm gonna start living with the most likes and like kind of just do the whole like
You could be the
yeah.
Brian Johnson of attention. It's
That,
like
that's what
become zen with your attention, and this is the way to manage your life. There's a big career in that.
there
Don't
you
knock
go.
it.
I'm changing the Twitter name and the whole brand right after this. Let's go.
But I do think there's a characterization that could be done from that.
I think so too. Like, yeah, get like a lengthy white gown that I wear and roll up to things like as a guru and just kind of tell people. I think honestly, this is my next
And people
performance
would
piece.
listen to you.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking I sell this to like corporate America and I go around as this like supposed guru and then record the whole thing and that's my next like performance.
You know, there's something in the Ali G approach that you could definitely do.
For sure.
Because
For
people
sure. I
just
love
don't
Ali G.
quite know whether you're real or not.
They
And
don't.
I think there's an Ali G approach to this
I think
as
so.
part of your performance art. Because talk me through the Alfonso Newton and the whole idea of. So you've got Mark Wilson, who's the Genesis. He's creating ridiculous. You need to express yourself through every format you possibly can, and it keeps compounding. So you're creating this vast body of work that's telling this weird world of Die with the Most Likes, or even Mark Wilson. And then you start introducing your own characters in. And what blew me away was I was introduced to Alfonso via the Gristle Buddies launch, but then reading the book, I'm like, oh, he was the president of the United States before. This is Mark is telling this story from every angle using the characterizations. And then I realized, okay, I think I wrote to you at the time, and like, this is way bigger than I ever imagined. And nobody's understanding how big this whole thing is.
Yeah, well, because the two books, I have 5 books now, and I'm working on another poetry collection. But the two were like 120,000 word books that were written with zero care that anyone would ever read them, which is just like such a painstaking.
You didn't even
and
reread one of them, did you?
I couldn't reread Sparsely Attended Funerals because it was written kind of at the height of the pandemic, and it was a really kind of paranoid and painful time for me in many ways. So I wrote that over the course of like a month, and it's like a 90,000 word book. Submitted it to this indie publisher.
I love that book because I love the short stories and how it works.
Yeah, it was like it was. So it's just a lot. It's a very heavy. As you know, it's not a beach read. Like if you're reading that on a beach, I don't know, you're probably like fucked or something.
You're
like,
probably going to get arrested.
You're probably gonna get arrested, right? But yeah, so the world just kept expanding and expanding, and really it did become this effort to try to drag people in, and it was funny. The digital art almost functioned as an appetizer to get people to read my books, like when I was putting those on Instagram and stuff.
Really?
Yeah, it was almost like casting out a fishing line with rotten meat on it and saying, "Hey, come take a snack," and then maybe like you'll buy the book and maybe you'll figure out like this whole different, deeper world. And I still tend to want that for people. Like the happiest I'm ever at is when people reach out and say they've read one of those humongous books, because like a novel is just different, as you know, it's a way different undertaking. It's a different world that you have to create and stuff. But with those things, with the novels, with the SoundCloud rap, with the pieces of art and the painting, like I want to be everywhere all the time. I want to be a parasite in the mind of America.
I keep asking the question, why? Why are you doing this? Look, I think it's really important, but I want to know your motivation. Why do you think the story's still not understood, still not told, and needs to be told from every angle?
Yeah, I think that part of it is just I'm trying to think about the best way to express it, really. I think that part of it is making people feel the way that I feel inside a lot of times, and seeking other people who are looking to feel that way in many ways. Like I think that part is drawn from 10 to 20 years of complete and utter irrelevance. And so like there's part of me that wants to find people and wants those people to experience the world through my eyes in the way that I look at stuff, not in a narcissistic way, but just in a sense that like I just think that it's important. I can't quite articulate it, I guess.
You don't articulate it, and I keep going back to you've got you're trying to get something across and it's incredibly important to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why that is. What is that
Mm-hmm.
emotion that's driving it, and that you still think that people don't get it? And I don't think they do, because I don't think they see the corpus of your work. But
Yeah. And you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm glad we're having this conversation because now I'm kind of coming back around to it. And I think, like all of the art that I create, it's created in a reaction to what I see going on in the world. And with that homogenization and that smoothing over of everything, there's this insane frustration on my end in like the AI stuff, the AI writing stuff, like really actually drives me kind of insane. Because as a writer, like you spend your entire life perfecting prose and like creating this great puzzle and things. So there's part of me that is just obsessed with almost like creating like an archival like an archival quasi fully fuckable museum of things that just may not ever be made again in some ways, you know, like it's just
yeah,
like these are things that I am so passionate about, that I'm obsessed with, that I have poured like thousands and thousands of hours of into. And so I think there's part of me that just really wants people to enter that world so that they can experience it for a moment.
there is a death of truth going on,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's driven by AI, whether it's driven by the political cycles,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's driven by Instagram filters, whether it's driven by pop music.
Yep.
There's a la la la, it's not happening, I can't see it.
Yep.
And nobody knows what the truth is. And I think, to me, you're cataloging a truth. And again, it's not with some sort of judgment about it. It's like, this is really what is happening, and this is the emotions it's actually creating in people. You know, the baby boomers who live their life in the pharmacy, eating shitty food. You know, they're on drips or they're on whatever it is, and there is no change for them that's ever going to happen. And that's truth. And I think
It is.
art as truth is a really important thing, because it's a cultural, historical memory, a mimetic that lasts.
Yeah. Right. And like you go back to like the middle America stuff, and it's like we're all effectively just like, you know, dying sacks of skin in a buffet line, slopping food onto our plate. And like we said, we're unable to discern what even has flavor anymore. And it's these things that are rapidly losing flavor, rapidly becoming just reheated versions of ourselves. And so like there's part of me that just refuses that prescribed demise, and I'm just like, I don't want that. I want to keep pushing this forward, and I will do it relentlessly and by any means necessary.
There are other people doing not similar things, but trying to do the same thing. Like Beeple does a really good job of cataloging the internet. You know, for me, you do it as well. You do it a lot with internet art. At the end of the day, you'll often produce something's happened in the art world, and you'll put your spin on it. And you're not necessarily being mean about it. You're just putting your spin on it. It makes me smile. It's like, oh yeah, great. I love to see the world through his eyes. Beeple does it for the whole internet, essentially, and puts a little bow around the internet every evening and goes, here you go. This was the internet, which I love, you know?
Oh,
and you do this daily practice. He does a daily practice of telling the stories of what's been going on. And I think it's incredibly important. Neither of you mint the stuff either. It's just done for that.
Yeah, for the pure joy of doing it, right? Because I wonder, I haven't talked to him about this, but I would wonder, he probably considers himself a documentarian and as well, I would think, right? Like, I mean,
well, every time I've spoken to him, yeah, he does. Of course he does.
Yeah.
So much so that we all want to be part of one of his pieces of art, and we've all been part of it because we feel like we're being documented in history, because people don't write the stories about us anymore. We don't exist. We're just people on the internet. And suddenly when somebody like him puts us into a story, into a little mimetic package, we now exist forever because we're on the blockchain. It's kind of nice.
It is. And there's always the apprehension about what the take is going to be, which is like, which is what I love too. It's like, what's going to happen here? So like that, I feel like that type of buildup and that type of, that type of lube, I guess you could call it, just doesn't exist a lot anymore either, you know, like where you're like genuinely excited to see what somebody's going to do, what their interpretation is going to be. That is also rapidly eroding in like the state of slop all the time, in the state of shittier and shittier shows, in the state of like horrible music. I think that those, again, like those kernels that you can like somehow pry out are going to stand out more and more in the future, because like they're
Well,
just.
because if you think of AI, it gets trained on what's on the internet.
Hmm.
Right now, it's exponentially growing AI
Hmm.
content. So AI is training on AI content, and this is the blandification of everything that happens. And somebody's got to rebel against it, right? Somebody's
Hmm.
got to take the other side, because if not, we're not humanity anymore. We're just robots existing in this kind of awful world.
Right. Because you'll see the AI bots on Twitter commenting on your pieces, and it's like it makes you insane. Like I'm just like I'll go insane. Like they'll repeat my prose and then write something on top of it. And I'm just like, this is the worst thing I've ever
But it's
experienced.
going to get
Honestly,
worse.
it's gonna get worse. That's the thing. So I think we're all looking for pieces of humanity in a world in which flesh and skin is going to become like a rare commodity in some ways.
So when you look at other artists that you admire and see, what do you see in the art world that interests you?
There's a lot. So growing up, yeah, I didn't have any exposure to art really. Like it was all books. So like, when people talk about the Beef Rothko series, it's like I didn't even really know who Rothko was until like high school or college or something. And even then, I was just like, I don't know what's going on. It's been a real treat, honestly, being in our place, because on a daily basis, you're scrolling through hundreds and hundreds of pieces of like sometimes just absolutely outstanding art from people who are just making this shit daily. I feel like it's contributed to this almost crazy, like it's almost this crazy, like exaggerated evolution for every single person that's participating in it, because you'll look at people elevating their pieces and then you'll say like, holy shit, I have to step it up even more and more and more for my next piece. I think like I'm just always very impressed by so many people. I mean, I could name a shit ton that I love, but I'll just like, I mean, what do you think? Like, are you experiencing that same thing as someone? Did you look at a lot of art growing up, or where you're at now? And is this more than,
Like
yeah,
you, I read books. Books and
yeah, yep.
music were my art expression. So I mean, I was aware of art. I didn't really, my parents didn't collect art. It was not really part of my upbringing. But now it is. And, I've made this, I've talked about this a lot. I'm driven by two parts of the art market. One is culture, because I think culture matters amongst all things. It's like it's the record of humanity and where we were
Mm-hmm.
at a specific time and what it meant to us, the
Mm-hmm.
emotions. And that's why I was very drawn to your work, Beeple's work, X-Copy's work. There's a bunch of people who were doing cultural stuff. Coldie's another one. They're
Coldie's
kind of,
great.
yeah, I love it. He's cataloging the decline of fiat money and the rise of these kind of tech uber lords and all of that. And that's the role he's playing, and and it's really important. And he's telling that story. The other side of it is, I also think, well, we've now got this stupid technology that changes every week in its power, and so to see how artists use new technology, and you've done some generative stuff as well. It's just amazing to see. And the big moment for me, I was at Ian Rogers' place in Paris, and I met this weird German-looking guy. Looked like he was a synth player from the 80s. He's like, "My name is Kim Assendorf," and he said, "I'm going to show you my new piece of work." And I was like, "Holy fuck! Every pixel is a token of which you can buy and add it to your own piece of art, so it changes over time.
That's
And the thing is gorgeous and driven by that." I'm like, "Okay, this is like unbelievable." So I just like the two ends. It's like culture plus cutting edge. That's
Yep.
that's how I see it, and I see a lot of that. But I also see artists who are following in the wake of somebody like you and learning their skills and testing out on the internet. And I love seeing that as well, because I think you and Mike, people allow people to be brave, because you put out a piece of
Oh,
work every
thanks.
day and it's not your best piece of work.
No.
Sometimes it's fucking amazing and the prose is extraordinary. You always put out the image first and then you come back and add the prose to it, which is a really nice touch. I really enjoy it. But I think it's encouraging people to try
Hmm.
to just do art, make art, create art, tell your story.
Thank you. I hope so. Yeah, and like many people, I get that same inspiration from them. It's like where they'll just be, it'll be like a random Tuesday and they'll just be like, hey, here's a new piece. And it just says nothing else. I'm like, this is insane. Like what? I'll always try to reach out and DM them. That's like the coolest part about this space, I think, is just being able to talk to the artist all the time. Like where else can you do that? You're at a museum. You're never going to be able to do that shit. So it's just like, it's just a really cool experience.
Yeah, and look, people really look up to you. So the
Oh,
more that you do stuff like that, I think the more it helps people just to
mm,
offer your advice, not that they're asking for advice, but your encouragement, whatever it is,
mm-hmm,
to say, here's how I think through this kind of stuff. I think
mm-hmm.
people appreciate it because you've been doing it a long time and you're incredibly prolific and you're incredibly well respected. I think that thing is a superpower to help people.
Thanks, dude. I appreciate that. Hopefully people like hopefully people enjoy the DMs. You can never really tell. I mean, yeah, I agree though. I think we're all just one. Yeah, I don't know. It's a cool place to be. That's all I'll say. Like, and I'm just grateful as hell to be here and like around so many other talented people. Like, it's just wild.
So the other side of this is the kind of weirdly mathematical, complicated idea of supply versus demand versus social graph, community. How do you think through that? Because you're very thoughtful about it. A lot of it, and because I know a lot of artists are going to watch this and they don't know how to deal with this. And, you know,
Mm.
Blondie particularly, and Blondie and I try and help as many people to think
Hmm.
through, how do you think about supply? When do you do stuff? How do you do stuff? How do you think about this? And what have you kind of learned in your journey?
Hmm. Yeah, I become just obsessed with I become very obsessed with just creating usually like one big project a year. So like that would be like Gristle Buddies or like Glory Holes, the first ever generative Glory Hole project, or one of those. And then the rest of the time it's just spent like creating art and experimenting and hopefully, I mean, it's been such a long time doing this that thankfully I like generally have all my sales done before like I mint anything. And I think that that's like one part that I would recommend to artists massively is one, I think um limiting the amount of just like overall shit that you're involved with all the time, because if you're involved in every single thing all the time and like your work is just constantly being minted, I think it opens up like yeah, the potential for your work to not like potentially get the value that you could get from it. And then two, I think just
But then how do you
um
pay your bills? Because
that's a good question.
or are people leaving their jobs too early and then they have
I
to
think
mint and then they destroy their own market?
so that's a great question. Like I was working my full-time job up until about 5 months ago. So like I was doing both of these things for like effectively what's 5.5 or 6 years.
Wow.
So
Did you
like
not drive yourself insane?
it was pretty nuts. Yeah, I did buy one of those devices on Amazon that would like move my mouse around for me. So like I had that going. Well, so they had figured out like this tracking software that was tracking what things, and so eventually they said like, hey, we noticed that your mouse wasn't actually logging into programs. You weren't actually doing anything. So I got a slap on the wrist for that. And but that was like 4.5 years into this thing or something. But ultimately, like I did feel like having that job for that long and having that income and being able to supplement that was massively important for me, really. Like I don't think I would have been able to do it outside of that, because I would have been way too worried about like, of course, like we all have bills to pay. We all have to like create revenue and create, the ability to get those things done. But man, yeah, I gotta say, like being a part of that job that I really fucking hated was ultimately like the most freeing thing that I could have in my art career in some ways.
Yeah, and I just feel like I see some of these artists and I think they've quit their jobs too soon. So then money becomes the primary objective. And if you're not careful, you just ruin the value of what you're doing.
Hmm. Yeah, I think yeah, and like it's like you never want to tell anybody that necessarily, right? Like it's like it's such an
Yeah.
insanely sensitive topic because everyone's art is like worth is worth something, or it's perceived to be worth something, and I think that like we all try to celebrate that as much as possible. But to your point, it's when the minting becomes relentless and there's drops every week and your collector base gets exhausted, I think is the biggest part. It's like, the collectors are such an important part of the community. These are people who are like at the forefront of kind of like digital ownership and art patronage and a bunch of other like really the super nuanced aspects of this. And so too, it's like that meme where you're like the person's going up to that cow with the buckets, like that like cow that's all skinny, and it's like, here we go again. And it's like, you kind of got to be gentle and be super grateful, obviously, for people who collect. And I think that that's the part that I've never lost, where it's just like, when people collect from me, it's like they kind of become like almost a family member. You know, I text people all the time. I send the care packages and paintings. And I think that that's the other advice I would give is like, if you can elevate the experience for the collector and like, you know, truly like show them how grateful and appreciative you are. I think it's a very solid
Yeah, I mean,
move.
one of the things as a collector of one-of-ones of yours is you get the Ponderosa Meat Manager, right? And that's a one-of-one art that's representative of the person, so they're highly unlikely to sell it.
Yep.
It gives them an emotional attachment to your work. It's a
Hmm.
really clever way. And then there's the care package, and I've got, amazing painted Converse and T-shirts and all of this stuff, right? So you're now, it's a very symbiotic relationship where, you care that somebody cares about your work and you show their appreciation back. Very few artists do that. But how do you think about a series? Like, why wasn't Gristle Buddies a one of 10? And why was it, how do you think about
Yeah.
the size of the series? Because the one-on-ones, they're commission only for you nowadays. So,
Yep.
okay, fine. And you can decide how many you want to do. You can
Yep.
regulate your supply. Great. But when it comes to series to build a social graph and allow a bit of gamification amongst people,
Mhm.
it's like buttholes from your hometown. I mean, there's only 5 of them. I think these will be fought over forever by people.
Hmm.
And even I think the AGIs are going to fight over those assets because there's only 5 of them. And that's what happened with Last Selfie and Mortal and stuff
Yep.
like that. How do you think about that whole structure? Because I think people want to learn as well.
Yeah, so for one, like I think for one, the series has to be important enough to you that you want to make a lot of them. Like if it's not important enough, then you just don't want to do it, in my opinion. Like, you know, it has to be something that you treasure and that you poured yourself into and that you really
But
want
do
to
they have to
express.
be like a one of, say a 1 of 10 or a 1 of 10? That's the other
Mm.
thing, the complication.
Yeah, and I like the one of X model quite a bit because people like Nameless Dread was a one of X. So that's a project that was like documenting our demise, our corporate demise, and I think those are really cool because people are essentially getting to experience like the same uniqueness and the special like feeling you get when you collect a one from an artist, but it is in a larger set, and in that set you find community too, other people that fuck with that same stuff, and I think there's like something very cool about the bonding that happens there. With Gristle Buddies in particular, I just will say, so when I was coming up with the traits for it, they became too hilarious for me
Yeah,
to
brilliant.
not make it that big, right? So it's like, you know, I was coming up with this shit, and it's like one of the things was wearing like Marilyn Manson's rib that he removed to suck his own dick, and like one of them was wearing like, you know, he's got like a hymns for men like fist that he has, and so there's these. It just became too insane. Like I think the collection started out, and we were gonna make it 420 Gristle Buddies, but as we were going through the iterations of them and the code we made for it, it was just like, we can't have this be only 420 because they're just too fucking funny. And sometimes that happens too. I feel like when you've like poured yourself into a project and you just love it so much that you want more and more people to experience it. But that being said, I think that like those things do have to be priced in a way that is attractive for people too. Like you don't like, you know, I wasn't going to price Gristle Buddies at like 0.5 per buddy when like really, like you said, it becomes kind of a gamification process, kind of community building things. So you price those in a way that people can afford them and buy multiples. And if they flip them, good for them. You know, it's like it's all part of the game.
It's like Xcopy's so good at this. He wildly underprices stuff now.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
you hold some back as an artist. You can make the money from the back end of it, but you
Yep.
wildly underprice it. And your collectors are super grateful because they get
Yeah.
first dibs at it. So then they feel like they've got value.
Mm-hmm.
The value of the art goes up. The artist is still owns some, so that he can release some over time from one of one, DMs,
Yep.
stuff like that. It kind of works.
Yep.
And how do you think about when you did Gristle Buddies? You're using technology, right? So you're using AI to generate the traits. You build the
Oh
traits
no.
yourself.
Yeah.
No, you
No,
build the
no
traits.
AI.
So how do you do it?
No, it was really funny. Well, so Gristle Buddies was like an old school. So I created this layering mechanism, and then I hand drew every single trait, hand drew every single layer, and I used JavaScript to just like randomize the layers that were like appearing on the different buddies. Transient Labs helped build like the different like randomization tactics, but it was so funny because Laura, my wife, was like, this is like an insane amount of work to put into something that's effectively a joke project. And I'm like, I only know insane amounts of work. Like, I love toiling away at things that are just stupid as shit and funny. Like, it's very funny to me.
So why then roll out Alfonso as the front of that project? Because it was genius. The Cutco knives, the whole you doing karate, and that was a whole other thing that you really layered into that people loved. I mean, your interview with Roger Dickerman as Alfonso was fucking genius. I was rolling with laughter.
Thank you. Well, it was funny. Alfonso was born. Yeah, man, it was a rough year last year. Like, I lost a really, really good friend. And so it was strange. Like, she had passed away, like, right before Gristle Buddies was going to launch. And like, part of me was just not sure that I was going to really like be able to like kind of laugh again or, experience the kind of joy that I had experienced before. So, in a weird way, Alfonso Newton was this like it was this character that I like created to be able to retreat into and like find the ability to like laugh again and let other people laugh
because
at
you're
me
using
or
a
with me.
character. You don't have to be yourself.
Exactly, right. Yeah, I was like this. I'm just going to create this absolute idiot. I described him as aggressively illiterate. He owned like indoor trampoline parks. He went to University of Phoenix online dojo school for karate. I mean, he's just like an absolute buffoon, but people like really liked him. And so it was just like, it was a really special experience to have somebody like, to have people really resonate with a character that you create like that, because people loved him. It was very heartwarming.
Well, because we like to laugh at ourselves. We
I
did
think
that
so
whole
too.
thing together with Blondie and Martha, and everybody was there to have fun. And you came and did the Alfonso Newton, karate exhibition, and it was just it stops us taking ourselves too seriously.
It does. And I think at the end of the day, that's what, for sometimes as an artist, that's what like we're responsible for doing. Like, I could sit around and write sad prose and poetry all day. I could make the saddest pieces all day. But if there isn't that vein of humor to break it up, like, I would be fucking miserable, like, so I think that comedy and that humor plays such a vital role in my creative process, because without it, I think it would just, I don't think I would be a bearable person to hang out with, really, like, so.
And scrolling through your X feed, you show off all of this stuff. I think it's one of the most important feeds if you're into the art world to see, because you do this daily commentary, you do stuff, but you also show people you honing your skills, practicing the prose, the art. And then you've got like the series like Dying Is Not Enough, which was that driven by the death of the friend of yours that started that as a concept?
It was partially like, because the pieces it was really cool. Like, I was in the middle of grieving, and I was kind of in the stage of anticipatory grief where like I created these physicals for her where I was just not sure what was happening with her. And so they were these like really kind of, there was really dark physicals that I had made, and then we ended up auctioning those off, and we had raised like $70,000 for this
that was fabulous.
hospice center here that takes in people who don't have a place to die. So it was a really special place, or a really special thing to do, and it helped me grieve personally. And there were so many other stories from people, and that was like the crazy part about our world is like people look at crypto Twitter or digital art Twitter, and there's all sorts of like people bitching about stuff, or there's like people getting mad about the algo or whatever, but at the heart of it, there's this really incredible community and these people who genuinely care about each other. Like, I can't tell you how many people reached out and said, hey, I lost somebody too. This is what I did to help grieve. And it was this like, it just helped so much to be able to do that with everybody. So I was just insanely grateful. But yeah, similarly, like the Dying Is Not Enough series, it was kind of a combination of just ruminating on death itself, and then just the prospect of nothing we do ever being enough in some ways. And so like, what is the ultimate thing that we do, and that's still not enough? Like the culmination of our entire lives still is not enough. So I just
because
kind of like
we didn't die with the most likes.
Right.
It's
right. That's what
it's kind of like, it's all part of that same story.
it is.
And also what makes it relevant is all of us are starting to lose parents.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because if you think of the millennial cohort, everyone's kind of into their 40s now. And if your parents are a little bit older than they had you, you're starting to lose your parents. Your friends are starting to lose their parents. My Gen X group, all losing our parents.
Yeah.
But then that is the world looking back at you. There's a reality that the largest cohort of people in existence prior, the baby boomers, are all dying. and it's affecting all of their kids. So it's actually really important for people to come to terms with the reality of this all.
Yeah.
It's harder
And
when
think,
it's somebody who's younger and kind of got robbed of their lives. It's very different. But with parents, it's like we all have to deal with this.
That's what it is. And think about and what it really was is like too, you think about all the time you waste, like we had said, scrolling Twitter, accumulating, senseless adoration. And you think about those memories lost, those moments that are just kind of eroding in your hands of like your loved ones, the people with you. And it just becomes this senseless cycle of accumulation and then and then evacuating things that actually mean something to you. So like in that Dying Is Not Enough series, it's like, it's kind of a reflection of like everything that is lost on a day-to-day basis and the things that we'll never get back. And like the comedy that we just participate in that, even though we're completely aware of it in some ways.
And also there's that weird dichotomy that we want to die with the most public likes.
Yeah.
When the ones that actually matter are the private likes.
Yep.
Is your friends and family.
Right? That's it, right? And they're oftentimes neglected. Is the crazy part. It's like,
well, how many people sit at dinner and they're on their phones?
That's it. Or yeah, you're not texting your parents every day, but you're like on Twitter shit posting every day, so I completely
And when
agree.
your mum calls, I'm busy.
Right, right. That just nailing that button to hang up immediately, straight to voicemail. Have at it, Mom. Sorry, I'll talk to you on the weekend or something. But that's seriously, it's a really kind of depressing. It's a really kind of depressing existence sometimes.
Yeah, but the flip side of that is on your feed. You've done a lot of that work recently, and I really love it. It's disturbingly hard. The prose is elegantly beautiful, but hard to read.
Thank you.
But then it's like good meat and some ridiculous random shit. And
yeah, it'll be like the Ozempic.
That feed is like the madness of your world.
Yeah, it's like, hey, Moonbirds just signed a deal with Lockheed Martin. They're getting a collab, or like it'll be like, oh, Ozempic penguins, and then also this like horrifically sad thing. So, and those are the two aspects of humanity. There's like parts that are so funny and so absurd and that I love, and then there's parts that are really sad. And I think exploring both of those worlds makes me like feel complete in many ways, and makes me feel like it makes me feel like I'm exploring kind of the spectrum of humanity versus just focusing on one aspect.
Well, because if you look at, I actually wrote down a bunch of the emotions that your work has, and it uses usually humor as the top level, but humor's a gateway drug into actually the messaging you're giving. And there's a lot of that is sadness, shock, disgust, fear, sorrow, fondness, meat. Meat seems to be an emotion. But you tend to lean into the emotions that other people don't. Most other people use straight up anger, love, anger, those kind of very polarizing emotions. And you actually operate in the middle bucket, the messy parts.
Yeah.
And I think that's really interesting because nobody else does that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's like we talked about with before. It's like comedy is really, it does function as a lubricant for helping people understand either the more painful parts, the funny parts, like the complexities at hand, because not everyone can sit down and read an 80,000 word book. So if you're able to like offer them a meme or a GIF or something that's like going to be digestible and for them to be able to interpret and understand, and then bring them back into something where they can like read the prose that are associated with that, I think it's just like a really helpful way to almost hold people's hands and say, hey, like there's really tons of ways to understand these different art pieces, and every single way is completely fucking fine. You can just laugh at it, you can cry, you can do whatever you want, but there are like so many different worlds you can explore in there.
And I think that's a really important point, is that you could have just written books, and you could have really explained yourself in your books. But what you ended up doing was turning books, putting them through the meat grinder and turning them into internet native culture, which is like, how do I get it down to a meme? How do I get it down to an image? How do I get it down to a post? Even though you do the full thing from videos to books, you've actually learned how, and very few people have done that, is digest it down into internet moments that have their compressed files of what you're trying to say, because there's always multi-layers to everything. It's clever.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And it's tough to do. It's tough to distill all those emotions into a bite-sized little fat-free morsel that people can eat via suppository, just shove up their butts and say, hey, I'll take the nutrients any way I can get it. But like, I love doing it. And it's something that like it's something that I find very important. And like, hopefully other people enjoy it. I think they do. Like I said, I think the craziest part is like, people even observing my art, let alone collecting it, is always like the part where I get held up, because again, like those 10 to 12 years where nobody was doing either, I was just like, I don't think this is ever going to happen. So it's just been like a crazy, like, I can't even understand it. I still don't really comprehend what's going on.
But it's also fucking impossible to see your body of work anywhere. And you and I have talked about this. It's like, thank God for Rasta, right? Rasta have done a great job.
They have.
So I can put Die with the Most Likes in and see your Tezos work all the way through, and I can sort it by chronology, series. It's actually that's super useful. But or Laura more correctly, is rebuilding your whole website so people can really get their teeth around all of this. When is that going to be ready, you think?
It's going to be, so the first iteration is going to be done probably in like 2 weeks here, which is awesome. Wow. So it'll be an entirely new website, because it's funny, like the site that I have now is like my favorite thing that's ever been made, but it's insanely esoteric. It's impossible to navigate.
I mean, I love it, but it's like,
it's great. It's just like, what is this? Yeah. Like, so
you should have that as a link on the site.
We're going to, because for like years and years, I was running an absurdist, like Onion, like blog, like thing, but anyways, that's a story for another day. But yeah, the new site is coming soon. A poetry book's coming this year, like some big physical stuff, some other digital things. So I'm stoked as fuck to be like, talking to you, talking to everybody. It's been a crazy few years here, and hopefully just like continue to produce the meat.
So the final question is, what the fuck are we going to call this stuff now? Because we're still fighting over it. Are they NFTs? Is it digital art? Is it crypto art?
I think
do we price it in dollars? Do we price it in ETH? I mean, this stuff riles me up, but I want to hear your perspective so people can hate on you online.
Oh man, I'm gonna get like clickbaited here and like clipped out, and there's gonna be like, Die with the Most Likes is calling everything stupid fuckable slop or something now, and it's all about
exactly.
I do like digital art because it is like, I mean, that's what it is. So I would go with digital art.
But that doesn't mean it's on blockchain though.
That's true too.
And that angers people in our community. They're like,
I guess
person's
you're right.
Not a digital art. It's not it's weird. And we can't say blockchain digital art because that's really wanky. I don't know.
Yeah. Like, it's like the same way when people say like, oh, this is a one of one art. It's like, it's just art, but it doesn't, you don't have, like, it doesn't really deserve that designation. I think we can just like agree to just call it online meat. Agree to call all digital assets online meat. Yeah, that's perfect. I think that erases.
Everybody understands that terminology,
right? Nobody's gonna have any questions at all. You present that in a meeting to like the eventual like retail people coming for our bags. You say these are online meat. They'll be like, I'm buying that all day, every day.
And this is why you were paid the big bucks to write spam email, because you know exactly how to communicate
succinctly. Easily, it's like, this is just stuff that's just, it's been years of spam email writing. I'm just proud that I could finally create the next viral term for our movement and just online meat. And that's it.
Mark, fabulous conversation. Really enjoyed it. Can't wait to see what happens this year. It'll be a fun journey. And I'll see you soon.
Thank you, man, so much. Yeah. Cheers. And we'll see you soon. I'm going to load up another PBR and we'll start getting after it.
Absolutely. All right, my friend.
Later,
Take care.
all. Peace.
So, look, a fabulous interview with Mark to show the true extent of his art and how he expresses this story in various ways, and how he went from writing books to using the internet's memetics, its images, its network effects to tell his story in art. And it's this cultural resonance that I think has extreme value, because times are going to change, things are going to get more extreme, and this is cataloguing all of that. And that's what truly great art does for me on the cultural side. It catalogues the changes in our culture, where we can look back with fondness and memory or other emotions, fear, sadness, pain. All of those things can be expressed. And over time, I think they also become valuable to humanity. Anyway, hope you enjoyed it. See you next time. So you obviously like this video enough that you've got to the end. That's quite a big task. But listen, do me a favor, hit the like and subscribe button, and also check out what video's next, because I think you'll love it. But if you want even more, and when I'm talking more, I'm talking about member-generated ideas, incredible alpha, research, everything there to help you in your journey, just head to realvision.com/join for the best financial intelligence out there and the pure alpha that's within the platform.